How we doing? Good to see you guys. First off, I want to just take the time to thank you guys for being here and the job that you guys do for our program and covering it and giving it this exposure our players deserve and the attention our fans want to, receive about what we are doing here. But this is kind of a new reset for us. Fall camp is here. It's a sign that football is here, which is awesome. And we're really 4 weeks away from hopping into game plan opportunities for Idaho, but these next 4 weeks are really critical to the success of our program, what we're going to be doing moving forward, and that's really where 100% of my focus is at. I know we just came back from Big Ten Media Days last week, and there's tons of questions that really have nothing to do with this season. So I'm going to focus on the things that have everything to do with this season. Hopefully that's what we can direct this conference to be about, our players this year, what the future of this season looks like, and not necessarily the myriad of other things that we talked about this past week. Certainly excited about the direction of our team, where we're headed. I feel like we have a healthy team right now. You talk about eliminating distractions, and that's really what a big part of these next few weeks is for our guys, is focusing on the things that we can control and what makes our team a great team this year as we approach that. One of my goals is to make sure I don't give you guys any bulletin board material today, so let's see if I can do that effectively. So we can go ahead and open it up for questions.
Start right here on the left with Eric.
I was going to ask what kind of things you're doing this season to honor Kyrie, if there are some kind of items you've got for that.
Yeah, there'll be a few things. One of the things we've done in the past will be a helmet sticker to recognize him, and then there's some stuff that we do just within our own team. How we start off our team meetings and things like that that'll recognize him, but he'll always be there in our thoughts.
Front left, Bree.
Hi, Dan. Bree Amaranthus, Oregon Ducks SI. You've been around a ton of quarterbacks. What makes Dylan Gabriel special, unique from maybe others that you've been around?
Yeah, I think Dylan just has a great self-awareness. I've talked a lot about his leadership the last week at Big Ten meetings, and I think that maybe that doesn't give enough credit to the player he is. He has an opportunity to really break some doors open here with, starts with the amount of yards that he's thrown for, but I also know that's not what motivates him, right? He's done a great job of picking up our install. I think he's brought some ideas to us, too, as well, that he does really well. And that's our job as coaches now, to figure out his strengths as we lean into that. And these next 4 weeks will certainly be critical in that. But his approach every day, the way he works, looking for him to step up, as a vocal leader as this season continues. But what he does on the field is really impressive.
In the middle, Zach, second row.
Coach, there's been an appreciation among fans for how the Dalen Austin situation was handled. There was a similar situation last year. I'm curious what you learned from that situation and took it into this situation with Dalen.
I think you learn from every situation. Obviously, I've kind of spoken on that situation here already. I'm excited to see what he's able to do this season, but certainly he deserves that opportunity instead of having that yanked away until we know how all that'll play out.
On the left, James.
James Kreppy, the Oregonian. Dan, a couple of guys who were either limited in spring or missed the spring game, just wanted to see their status on Noah Winnington, Andrew Boyle, and Dave Iuli, if they'll be good to go when practice starts on Wednesday.
Yeah, I think we'll see all those guys in action.
Back, right, Aaron.
Aaron Slindy, KVAL TV. An exciting offseason for Bryce Beter, helping Oregon get to another super regional and being drafted in this year's MLB draft. Just what was it like for you to see him get drafted in this year's MLB draft? And what was your reaction when you found out that he wanted to and would be able to come back and play this season for the Oregon Ducks?
Yeah, it's something we actually had conversations with kind of before it all came full circle about, what his goals are, his aspirations. You get so excited for a player that does so many things right, and for those opportunities to come his way. And, obviously had an outstanding season for Waz. Waz and I are able to work really well hand in hand together about what that looks like in the offseason. Bryce is the guy that would love to go do football practice for 2 hours, turn around and go play a baseball game, and then go back to the weight room. So for the hard work that he does and how it's, played out, I'm really excited for him and excited to see what he does for us this season.
Middle back, Ronald.
Ronald Clark, KMTR. Going back to Kyrie, obviously, for the second year now, it seems like you're going through something that a lot of coaches don't have to go through. And you've talked before about your get real conversation that you have with the players. Curious, what other ways do you sort of, address and coach around these times where players are going through grief?
Yeah, I think our players are resilient. They're resilient guys. And they know if Kyrie was here right now, what he would want from them is their best, right? Their best effort, their best work. and to not slow down, and be distracted. So we'll always have a place in a way that we can remember him, but on the same note, that he would expect their best performance, and he would expect them to come to work every single day. So that's what we try to do for him.
On the left, Matt.
Matt Preem, 24/7 Sports. Big Ten Media Day, you said there's only 10 or less players on this team from when you arrived, and a lot has changed with this program. Where has it changed? Where have you guys seen that improvement or change for you?
Yeah, I think just the depth of our team is a lot different now than when we first got here, and that's always going to happen with transition. I think our player development staff, I think our recruiting staff, evaluation, our coaches have all done a really good job of figuring out ways to create competition. We have a lot more competition on this team. We're bigger. On both sides of the ball. I think that matters. Our guys have done a great job in the weight room with Coach Love and his staff of getting stronger and putting themselves in position. And then more than any of all that, understanding the expectations we have for them in our program. What does a practice look like? What's the physicality look like? Player standards, right? We always talk about player-led teams are really important. We have more leadership now on our team than we did when I initially got here.
Front left, Ryan.
Ryan Clark with the Oregonian. Dan, over the last couple of weeks, you've talked a lot about games being won in the trenches and the physicality necessary to compete for a national title.
Right.
Curious about your thoughts on how you built the roster out to achieve that on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, ultimately, we always say if you're good enough, you're old enough. I think, defensively especially, you want to have a lot of guys that can play winning football. So it's above the line or it's below the line, but if you can play winning football, we want you involved. Anytime you start looking at snaps, you want, guys on your defensive line, you don't want them playing 75 snaps a game, right? You want to be able to, spread the wealth. And when you do that, you get guys' best performance. So having more guys that can play on the front, I think that's really important for us. So when they are on the field, they can play at a really high level. That's one thing that we've definitely focused on.
Front middle.
Brandon Gibson, Duck Sports Authority. As you have entered your third fall camp, what's sort of the biggest lesson or change that you've made from first year to third year?
I don't think there's one lesson. There's a million lessons, right? Before I talked about you're drinking out of a fire hose when you first get here, and then you start to kind of anticipate what issues might come up. Now I think we're maybe even ahead of those issues. Before they happen, you see that down the horizon and you're prepared for it. There's still a lot of growth for me and certainly still a lot of growth for our team, but I wouldn't pick one thing that's adapted. There's a lot of things that have changed.
Scott Reed, also Duck Sports Authority. Hey, I'm going to ask a question. You talked about the book that you had the team read this summer, Hidden Potential.
Mm-hmm.
Second time that you've talked about leadership books. We know what that does short term, on the field, off the field, in the classroom, but talk a little bit more about how that's important to their long-term leadership development as leaders in their communities long after they're gone from the University of Oregon.
Yeah, I think one, it's important for us as coaches to keep it at the forefront of their minds, which means it can't be something you touch once in the spring and never come back to and revisit. So we'll continue to kind of put that messaging in front of them throughout the year. Right now we're going through that same process of what some of our messaging will look like throughout the season. But our guys, kudos to our player development staff, Carl and Uzi, and the job that those guys do, finding ways and opportunities for these guys to be more than just football players. We talked about Sleep in Heavenly Peace project where we built 230 beds for kids that don't have beds, whether it's working with kids sports or volunteering in a local middle school or going to read books. I think our guys realize that when you sign up to be a player at Oregon, you sign up for more than just being a football player, more than just being a student, but also signing up to be a guy that can have an impact on your family, but also on people around you in the community.
Back middle.
Danny Havel, Fox Sports Eugene. Coach, at Big Ten Media Days, Jeffrey, Dylan, Terrence talked about off-field and how the players are hanging out more with each other off the field. Talk about the trickle-up that could lead to holding each other accountable at practice, making sure they've got the playbook right, all of that.
Yeah, that's been a trend really in our program over the last 3 years. It's grown and grown and grown, and I think our guys have really bought into what that looks like and how much it helps us and enhances us. Again, I always say on fourth down, you're going to go that much harder for a guy that you love that's next to you, and I think our guys take a lot of pride in that, realize that that's an important piece and make sure they incorporate it themselves, and we obviously incorporate that a lot with our program.
On the left, James.
Dan, the APR numbers came out about 2 months ago or so. It was a particularly low number from a year ago. From your understanding of what the closing is of 23-24 this past month, are you more confident that that was a one-year aberration and that the APR will get back on track to not worry about scholarship reductions or anything like that in the future?
Yeah, I think in the landscape of college football with things changing, that's certainly a challenge. But I also look at guys like Bo Nix and Bucky Irving that were academic All-Americans, and there's a lot of guys that achieve really highly at our school from an academic standpoint. Some of these guys that have gone on to the NFL, just like Javon Holland, I anticipate them coming back to make sure that they're able to finish their degree if they haven't yet. And it'll always be something that's very important to us from an academic standpoint.
Brenna Green, Coin 6. Dan, I just remember sitting in this room last year and the amount of tension there was over realignment that was coming. And I understand that you probably would say it wasn't a distraction, but I'm sure that there were a lot of late night phone calls and things like that leading up to camp. Just how nice is it to not have to be worrying about that this season?
Yeah, I'm grateful for the leadership at our university, to be able to make that happen. I'm really excited about, the opportunity in the Big Ten for us, where that positions us for the long term, and certainly great to eliminate a distraction.
Eric Scopel, 24/7 Sports. Poncho stepping in, maybe it's a big role there at center. Can you talk about his relationship with Dylan and then also the other guys in the offensive line, how that's coming?
Yeah, Poncho's just a fun guy to be around. We had a camp here just a couple days ago, and there's no intention that Poncho necessarily needs to be out here, but he's a guy that wants to be around his teammates and, be around ball. He's a great example of connection, the job he's done building relationships in that room. I always say the offensive line room is one of the tightest groups on every campus, but it's very tight here, and Poncho's a big part of that. I think having his brother around as an influence was really special for Poncho early here in his career, because there was somebody else besides the coach that was holding him to a higher standard, and now you can see Poncho's holding himself to that same standard.
Coach Samples was a late addition to the coaching staff in spring. How have you seen him kind of over the last few months get used to and get comfortable with both the coaching staff and the running backs in that room?
Yeah, I think he brings great energy and enthusiasm on the field. I think he's a very intelligent coach. I'm really excited about what he brings here, how he hit the ground running, didn't really come up for air, and in the situation he came in, he didn't have that opportunity. So he's done an unbelievable job, starting to build those relationships on our team, but I also know that those take time, right? So I don't think he's trying to eat an elephant in one bite. He's taking his time doing that, but he's done a good job of marrying with our offensive staff and our entire team and the players in that room.
You mentioned Big Ten Media Day, the staff going to Central Oregon, and then this past weekend, the whole team went to Camp Harlow. Why are those two retreats so important for you, for the staff, and also just for the players as well?
Yeah, I think it gives you great vision. Again, it's your job as a leader to make sure everybody in the organization understands what you expect, right? And you can't, there's no such thing as over communication. So I think we have to do a great job of communicating that year in and year out of what this should look like. It's called being prepared. It's called being efficient. So we want to be able to do that, but then we also want to spend time with each other so I can, what makes Coach Lorg and his kids tick, how their summer was, what that felt like, because we're about to hop into a time. In fact, we've hopped into a time where a lot of these guys aren't going to be seeing their families near as much until the end of January. So that time, is really special, and it takes away from some of that time they're going to spend with their family in the summer. But for us and the continuity it creates, it's really important.
You got a chance to work with the guys during the off season. Now heading into fall camp, which position groups are you kind of most excited to see battle it out with fall camp being here finally?
Yeah, it's always hard to pick one, and you guys often ask these questions, but I don't know. I'm as excited about these position battles as you guys are, and that's why having depth on our team is really important. But I don't know that I'd pick one position where we got to figure out who that guy is. That's every position, right? Every position we got to go out and compete every day. We have depth and we have talent, so we'll see who rises to the top.
Last week you mentioned specifically an area where you wanted to see improvement, expected to see improvement is the kicking game. Do you expect Atticus to help provide not just the solution there in field goals, but also on kickoffs, or is Boyle going to be the first one on the kickoff side?
That's what fall camp's for, right? So those guys will go out there and compete every single day, and we'll see, again, who ends up taking those jobs. But we've got some good depth there and some good experience to see how that plays out.
Speaking to depth and experience, Dan, that receiver room, the guys that you have there that you've been able to bring in, just wondering if you could speak to the versatility of the different guys in that group and the amount of weapons that Dylan is able to have in this first year in this program.
Yeah, it's great to have great players, obviously, and I think it's even better when you have coaches that can adapt to those players. So each one of those players is different. I think Coach Stein and our offensive staff do a really good job of putting those guys in position. I think Coach Adams has done an unbelievable job of creating a lot of competition in that room. For us, it's about seeing how we can get those guys to continue to celebrate each other's success, because that's not natural at the wide receiver position, right? And you know, I always talk about Troy. Whenever he had big plays, I was just as impressed with his ability to go block on the perimeter when he didn't have the ball in his hands. So all those are the things that we're going to try to celebrate this season, and then continue to move guys around to create success.
Back middle, Brett.
A very hard-hitting question for me. You said at Big Ten Media Day that you were hoping to travel the Inflatable Duck to all the away games. Have
Probably
you?
wishful thinking.
Wishful thinking?
I imagine, yeah.
Ah,
it's not going to
dang.
fit on the plane. I don't know how you blow that thing up.
Just, do you have any more explanation of the backstory of that and how that all occurred?
You know, I've said it a few times, but it's kind of like the first day of school. You don't want to just walk in with new shoes, right? We certainly want to come in and make a splash, and I think our marketing team does an unbelievable job of making sure that Oregon's recognized nationally. They've always done a good job from a branding standpoint, but we have to go out there and win games. It has very little to do with that, but it creates excitement for our fans, and certainly excitement for the Big Ten and Oregon joining it.
Back middle, Ronald.
I don't know if you're a gamer or if your kids are gamers at all, but EA Sports obviously came with a package to get players into the game this year. They said they want to get coaches in the future. What is it going to take to get Dan Lanning in the game?
Just ask. I mean, I'm not a gamer. I don't really care that much about it. I say that. I mean, I did just order it the other day on Amazon, so I mean, I'm not going to be playing it, but my kids might be playing it. So I just want something over at the house so the players, when they come over, they can play the game. But it should be fun. Certainly some excitement around that game.
On the left, Matt.
I saw they had Jeff Bossa playing D-end on there the other day. That kind of threw me off. So we got to work on where they're lining up.
There's been a lot of talk about the excitement with this team. You're around the most. Simple question, what excites you about this team?
Just the opportunity, right? Really the opportunity to put our best foot forward. These guys have worked really hard this offseason, and we're all anxious to step on the field for a Saturday, but I know our guys don't take for granted the work that requires, right? Most valuable thing we have is time. So how efficient we are with our time as we approach game one, the growth that we can make from where we were last season, which absolutely has nothing to do with this season and next year, I think is really exciting to see how that comes together. And then the challenges that are in front of us and how we attack those. You know, every year you're going to have adversity. I want to see how our guys respond to that.
Front middle, Bree.
Dan, this defense has a chance to be pretty dang special. Again, you've been around some awesome defenses. Without giving Bolton board material, how would you compare it to that Georgia defense that you finished your season there with?
Well, I wouldn't yet, right? I absolutely wouldn't, because we haven't played a game yet, right? We have to see, and I don't know that even with that group that we had there at Georgia, if I knew that was going to be that group. They had to go out and perform. So there's high expectations of how we want to play defense here. There's no doubt about that. On the same note, we have to go do it, right? So what it could look like and what it will look like, I don't know that I have the answer to that.
Right over here on the right.
Paulina with Fox 12 Oregon. You kind of spoke on this just a little bit, but you mentioned that the next 4 weeks are critical. So how are you and your team kind of overcoming these challenges within the next 4 weeks to face teams in a new league that you may not have seen as you opened up for Idaho that Oregon hasn't seen since 2004?
Yeah, a lot of that prep is I put on our coaches. You know, a lot of the prep is making sure that we're installing the right calls that we need to be able to carry forward as we approach some teams that might have a different approach. On the same note, really these next 4 weeks is about us, and the focus is about us being the best team we can possibly be, on both sides of the ball and in the kicking game. We want to dictate how we play, right, regardless of the opponent. So that being said, you still have to be able to line up and play some different looks, which we've done a lot of summer scouting report work, some off-season work on what we might need to carry that's different moving forward.
On the left, Eric.
How is Julio Florences' summer gone from a recovery perspective? Is he going to be good to go this week?
He's probably not quite there yet. He's a guy that we'll continue to monitor as we go through, fall camp, but he's close.
James on the left.
If you gave up gaming, I think the Elizabeth Street crew is going to be let down, Dan.
Yeah. Don't have a lot of time for that anymore.
On a fan-centric question, obviously the players really took to the big play scepter last year and the sneakers and all that. Fans have been wondering whatever came of the signed sneakers and what was all going on there, and if that's going to be a thing this season without knowing yet whatever came of the sneakers from last season.
Yeah, great question that I don't necessarily have the answer to, so I'm not sure. I don't know that that'll be something that carries over or not, but you'll know game one like I do.
We're back behind him on the left.
Knight Uretsky, 1490 the score. So earlier you said that Noah Winnington should be good to go this week. What does this offseason kind of look like for him, and how is he progressing coming off that injury?
Yeah, Noah just works. He kind of keeps his mouth shut and just works, and that's what he's come back quicker than anticipated in some ways because of how he works. We always talk about when you're injured being a aggressive rehab specialist. I'd say he's ahead of the curve right now, and he looks really good.
Back right, Aaron.
Coming into Oregon, you had a lot of expectations, and you've kind of found a lot of success in your first 2 years. Heading into year 3 and a new conference, just what have your conversations been like with the team on managing expectations when right now you have really no control because you're not playing a game for 4 weeks?
Yeah, I think our team does a great job of that, and it's really about eliminating distractions and things that don't matter. Our focus is how do we become the best team we can be on the field right now, and that's about the work that we do. It's the work in the weight room, it's the work in a walkthrough, it's the work on the practice field. So our guys are doing a great job of attacking that.
On the left, Matt.
The schools push the envelope and being innovative, new uniforms. I'm going to take a risk. Your thoughts on just the new look of them, and maybe the going back into the history of some key years of referencing?
Yeah, I mean, that's not a job that I'm necessarily charged with, but it's great to be in a place that's innovative on the front, the front edge of that and attacking that, always looking for ways to, improve our sitting and our brand and making sure that we're recognized. So I think it's really awesome, our collaboration with our team, our collaboration with Nike as they continue to do that. I think that makes this place really special.
Right behind him, James.
Dan, at this time last year with Realignment, go back a year ago, your new contract was announced. Obviously, Rob had talked about the bold vision for the future for Oregon, then the Big Ten came shortly thereafter. Whether it's jerseys now, the IPF construction, what's the next thing along with it? Is it Autzen expansion has been bandied about quite a bit, something on the north end? What's the next thing of this bold vision that maybe we don't know about yet that's part of the bold vision going forward?
Yeah, if you don't know, it probably means you're not supposed to yet, so I'll wait until it comes. So.
Time for a couple more. Right here up front.
Coach, can you talk a little bit about how the increase in the allowable coaches for on-field instruction is going to help the program moving forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have 130 players on our team, this season. So, and having 10 coaches, that's like 13 players per coach, right? So our goal is to have as many people able to impact our players and their growth on the field as possible. I'm also really excited about the fact that this is going to help us grow our young coaches, right? And some of the other coaches that have great experience in our program that can help our players be better. So the fact that we'll have added instruction, more hands-on approach with some of the people in our program, it's really going to enhance that experience for our student athletes and certainly enhance the development of our coaching staff.
Thank you, Coach.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.